Good day, students. Welcome to part 2 of the Accuplacer Arithmetic sample test questions. We're going to be going over questions 11 to 20 on this clip, all right? So let's go ahead and take a look at question number 11. So we're asked to add these two mixed numbers, 2.5 plus 4 and 2/3. So let's see, 2.5 plus 4 and 2/3. So how about we separate these numbers? I'm gonna put the integers next to each other, 2 plus 4, and then put the fractions next to each other, 1/2 plus 1 2/3. Okay? These are easy to resolve. 2 plus 4 is 6. But these two fractions have unlike denominators, so we need to make them common, all right? So we need to figure out the LCD of the two denominators, which are 2 and 3. So what is the LCD of 2 and 3? Well, since they're both prime, uh, and the similar, the LCD is simply your product, which is 6. Okay? So I need to make both denominators 6. So how do I make this 6? I times by 3, top and bottom. How do I make this 6? I multiply by 2, top and bottom. Okay? So we now have 3 over 6 plus 4 over 6. We just multiplying across, right? So we have 6 plus, the denominators are common, so you combine them into 1. And at the top, we have 7. Okay? Now, 7 over 6 is an improper fraction. How do we write it as mixed numbers? Well, we just ask ourselves, how many times does 6 go into 7? 6 goes into 7 once. Remainder, 1. Okay, 1 over 6. So basically, you just divide, right? We have 1 on the 6. And now we can just add 6 to the whole number, which is 1. And that gives us 7. And with that fraction, 7 and 1/6. All right, so the answer is option C. Now, let's take a look at question 12. What is 1,345 over 99 rounded to the nearest integer? Now, since we're doing this by hand, I want to make this easy to do. So how about I round this to the nearest 10, and then round this to the nearest 10, divide, and see if I can divide with ease, okay? So if I round the numerator to the tens place, I'm going to have 1,350. And then the same thing down here, if I round this to the tens place, I'm going to add 1 to the 9, which gives me 100. You see the wisdom behind that strategy? When I'm dividing by 100, it's really easy, right? So that's why I wanted to round this up to the nearest 10. But I have to do the same to the top to preserve a measure of accuracy, okay? All right, so now if I can get the denominator into 1, then I can just drop it, okay? So how can I make this 1? I have to move the decimal point 2 places to the left, which is equivalent to dividing by 100. So if I divide by 100 on the bottom, or move the decimal 2 places to the left, I have to do the same thing on the top. Move the decimal point 2 places to the left, or divide by 100. So when I divide by 100, I'm going to have a movement of the decimal points. I'm going to have 13.5 over 1. Since the denominator is now 1, I could just drop it. So I have 13.5. Now I want to round this to the nearest 10. I'm sorry, to the nearest integer. So the integer is 3, right? So remember the rules for rounding. If it's 5 or greater, you round up. If it's 4 or less, you round down. Okay? You look at the number behind. So the number behind the place we're rounding to is 5. So 5 or greater, I'm gonna round up. So I'm gonna add 1 to the 3. So 13.5 rounded to the nearest integer is 14. Yeah, okay? So the answer to number 12 is C. Okay, let's take a look at question 13. It has to do with averages. It says 3 or 4 numbers have a sum of 22. If the average of the 4 numbers is 8, what is the fourth number? Okay, so let's assign a variable to the fourth number. So let f be the fourth number. Okay? Now, let's think about the whole idea of averaging. If you want to average 4 numbers, I'm going to add all of them and divide by the number of numbers, okay? So I've already added up the first 3 and I have 22. So what do I do to finish it off? I add the fourth number, which is f, and I divide it by the total number of numbers, which is 4 numbers in all, right? And that gives me what? It gives me 8. So if I solve this resulting equation for f, I'm done, all right? So how do we do that? We multiply both sides by 4 and subtract 2. Okay? All right, let's do it. So multiply by 4 both sides. These divide out. So I'll have 22 plus f equals 32. And to finish it off, just subtract 22 from both sides. And then you have f equals 10. So the answer is D. All right? Okay, moving right along. Question 14. We are supposed to multiply 46.2 times 10 to the negative 2. Okay? I'm going to show you two methods of doing this problem, and you can pick whichever one you like, okay? So method 1 is a shortcut, involves moving the decimal, involves adjusting the power. So I have 46.2 times 10 to the negative 6. Now, what you think I needed to remember is that the zero power property of exponents, if a number is non-zero, like let's say I have 5 to the 0 is 1, okay? So a to the 0, if you raise anything other than 0 to 0, you get 1, okay, as long as a is not 0. So the goal is, if I can make this 1, then the left side will be my decimal representation of this product. So the question is, how do I make this 1? If I can make this power if I can make this power 0, then I'm done. Okay, so how do I make this power 0? To make this power 0, I need to multiply both sides by these two by 10 square, or, to make long story short, I just simply add 2 to the exponent right here. So adding 2 to the exponent is equivalent to moving the decimal point forward twice. So since I added 2 to this exponent, it's as though I multiplied by 100. So multiplying by 100 moves the decimal point forward twice to this point right here. So if I add, anything I add here, I move forward. Anything I subtract here, I move backwards. Okay, so remember, forward is add, and subtract is back. Okay, so I move it forward here. So check this out. This is going to become 0.462 times 10 to the what? Times 10 to the 0, and this is just 1. So final answer is 0.462. All right? So there goes method number 1. Now method 2, I'll show you exactly how the whole mathematics works. Okay, there are no tricks here. This one involves using a trick. But let's check this out. So 46.2 times 10 to the negative 2. Now you need to know your properties of exponents here. I'm going to use the reciprocal property here. 46.2 times. All right, so 10 to the negative 2 using the reciprocal property of exponents is going to be 1 over 10 squared. Okay, and then 10 squared basically means we were multiplying 10 by itself. So we're going to have 46.2 times 1 over 100. Okay, because 10 times 10 is 100. So now I'm going to put this over 1 and multiply across numerator and denominator. So I'm going to have 46.2 in the numerator over 100. Okay, now the goal here again, just like we did before in the previous problem, question number 12, was if I can get the denominator 1, then I can just drop it, right? So how do I get the denominator to become 1? This is 100. I need to divide by 100 or move the decimal point forward twice. Okay? So dividing by 100 will move the decimal point forward twice. I'll make that a 1. So if I move the decimal point forward twice in the denominator, or divide by 100, I have to do exactly the same thing to the top. So move the decimal point forward twice. 1, 2. Okay? That's the whole idea behind this movement forward twice. We're dividing by 100, okay? So we're going to end up with 0.462 over 1. Okay? So if you're dividing anything by 1, you end up with what you started with. So our final answer is 0.462. All right? So any of these methods you want to use, you feel free to use it. The correct answer is option letter B. All right, question 15. It says if 3 over 2 is divided by 1 over 4 equals n, then n is between what two numbers? Well, how about we just work it out and see what the situation is. Now, anytime you're dividing fractions, you don't want to do this. 3 over 2 divided by 1 over 4. This is a mess. I don't even know what this is. What you can do is you can do something called drop, change, flip. or you multiply what you're dividing by the reciprocal of the other one, okay? So I'm going to multiply 3 over 2 by the reciprocal of 4 over 1, okay? Some people call it drop, change, flip, whatever helps you remember, okay? All right, so what we're going to do here is divide by 2. See, these two 2's can divide. So 2 goes here 1, 2 goes here 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 equals n. So let's see. 6 is between 5 and 7. So the correct answer is option letter C. All right, moving along. Question 16, it says 12% of 120. What is 12% of 120? Well, this is in word form. If we want to translate it into math, what does percent mean? Percent just basically means divide by 100, a fraction of 100. So 12% is 12 over 100, okay? Half is the operation multiply, and 120 just stays the way it is, okay? All right, so let's simplify this as much as we can. I can divide by 10 across here, which will cancel out the zeros. And I can let me multiply across. So I'm going to have 144. 12 times 12 is 144 over 10. Now, just like I did in question 14 and 12, if I can make the denominator 1, then I'm good. So that happens only when you're dealing with multiples of 10, okay? That's when you use this approach I'm showing you. So how do I make this 1? Just divide by 10 or move the decimal point forward once. Okay, let me do that again. Move the decimal point forward once. Okay? All right, so if I move the decimal point forward once in the denominator or divide by 10, I have to do the same in the top, all right? So move the decimal point forward once or divide by 10, same thing. So you're going to have 14.4 over 1, which is the same thing as 14.4. All right? So your answer is option letter B. All right, moving right along. Question 17. It says a box in a college bookstore contains uh, uh, books, and each book is in the box is a history book, English book, or science book. If 1/3 of these books are history and 1/6 are English, what fraction of the books are science? So let's just say that the total, let's represent the total number of books as 1. Total number of books equals 1, just like one big pie, okay? So each of the number of each book represents a pie, okay? So we have history, English, and science. History, we'll add history plus English plus science. I don't know why they didn't put any math here, which is not cool. For science, if I add all those pieces of the pie, I'm going to end up with 1, okay? 1 whole pie. So let's represent each quantity with their appropriate fractions, and then we'll find out what science is, okay? So history, let's see, is 1/3. English is 1/6. Science, we have no idea, so let's call that S equals 1. So if I can get S by itself, that tells me what fraction of the whole pie is science, okay? Now let's go ahead and solve this. To add these two fractions, the denominators are not common, so we need to make them common. To do that, we need to find the LCD of the denominators, which is the LCD of 3 and 6. Okay, since 3 goes into 6 and 6 goes into itself, 6 is the LCD. Okay, so I need to change this into 6. To do that, I need to multiply by 2 top and bottom, because 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm going to have 2 over 6 plus 1 over 6 plus S equals 1 whole pi. Okay, 1/6 plus 2/6, 2/6 plus 1/6 is 3/6 plus S equals 1. I can reduce 3/6, right, as a reducible fraction. If I divide the top by 3 and divide the bottom by 3, I'm going to have 1 over 2 plus S equals 1. Okay, so you can see what the answer is. You can see that the answer is 1/2, right? But let's work it out. So I'll subtract 1/2 from both sides. So isolate S. So subtract 1/2, subtract 1/2. On the left side, the halves add out to 0. So we have S equals, what is 1 minus 1/2, or $1 minus 50 cents? It's just simply 1/2, okay? or you can put this over 1 and times by 2 top and bottom, which is like extra, but shows you the steps, but you end up with s equals 1/2. So 1/2 of the books is science. So the answer to this one is option letter B. Okay? All right. Now let's move on to question 18. It says the measures of two angles of a triangle are 35 degrees and 45 degrees. What is the measure of the third angle of the triangle? So this is involves geometry. So let's say we have a triangle. What does the triangle angle sum theorem tell us? Well, it tells us that the sum of the angles of a triangle is equal to two right angles, or 180 degrees. Okay? So if this is 35 and this is 45, and let's say this is x, if I add all these three angles together, I will get 180. So the equation we're solving here is 45 plus 35 plus the third angle, we called it x, equals 180. Okay, that's a triangle angle sum theorem. The sum of interior angles of a triangle is 180. Alright, so to isolate x, I'm going to combine these two. Gives me 80 plus x equals 180. To isolate x, I'll just subtract 80 from both sides. Okay, so I'll subtract 80, and then I'll get x equals 100 degrees. Alright, so that is the angular measure of the third angle. Okay, so the answer is option letter B. Alright, let's move on to question 19. It says Erica bought 3/2 yard of fabric. If she uses 2/3 of the fabric to make a certain curtain, how much will she have left? So let's say you have a pie, okay? If you have a pie, and let's see, the denominator that we're dealing with right here is thirds, right? So I'm going to divvy up this pie into thirds. So that's the center. So I'm going to divvy it up into into thirds, okay? So dividing into thirds basically means I'm breaking it into three equal slices. All right. So if I have a pie divvied out into three equal slices or thirds, if I take out this is a third, this is a third, and this is another third. If I take out 2/3, what am I left with? If I take out 2/3, I'm left with a third. Okay. So if she uses 2/3 of the fabric, she's left with 1/3. Okay. So Erica is left with 1/3 of the fabric. Okay. So how long is that? Well, to figure it out, we just multiply this by the original length, right? So we're going to do 1/3 of, which is times the length of the fabric, which is 3.5 yards. Okay, so what is 1/3 of 3.5? This is too hard for me. I can't do it. So what we need to do is we need to make the fractions look alike. Namely, we need to make them both fractions. This is a mixed number. This is not a fraction. So to make this into a fraction or an improper fraction, we're just going to multiply the denominator by the number, and we're going to add whatever we get to the top. Okay? All right, so that's going to give us 1/3 times 2 times 3 is 6 was 177 over 2. Okay? So how do you multiply fractions? You just multiply across, top to top, bottom to the bottom. 7 over 6 is what she has left. It doesn't match with any of these. So how about write this as a mixed number? Okay? So 6 divided by 7. 6 goes into 7 once. 1 times 6, 6, which is 1. So this is the remainder. Okay, so it's 1 remainder 1. In mixed number form, this is going to be 1 whole number, 1 over 6. All right, so the answer is option letter C. All right, let's move on to question 20. It says Jen wants to tile the floor of her kitchen. The floor is a rectangle and measures 12 feet by 8 feet. If it costs $250 per square foot for materials, what is the total cost of materials for tiling the kitchen floor? So what we need to do first is find out the area, and then after we find out the area, we'll find the cost by multiplying the cost per square feet by the entire area. Okay, so this is a 12 by 8 kitchen floor. So what is the area? We are we are trying to figure out what covers this entire region right here. Okay, so let's call this my length and call this my width. The formula for area is length times width. Okay, so the area of this kitchen floor is going to be 12 times 8, or 8 times 12, doesn't matter. So the area is going to be 96 square foot. Okay, so the entire area is 96 square foot, and the unit price is 2.5 square foot. What is the total price going to be? So the total is going to be the area times the unit price, right? Which is 96 multiplied by the unit price, which is 2.5, $2.50. All right, so you can let's go ahead and multiply this out. The two ways we can do this, we can use work this out using fractions, or we can just multiply the decimals. Let's use decimals, okay? So 96 times 2.5, 5 times 6 is 30, 0 carry 3. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 3 is 48. And then we do the 2, 2 times 6, 2 times, let me erase that, oh yeah, I can just scratch it out. 2 times 6 is 12, which is 2, carry 1. 2 times 6 is 18, plus 1, 19. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and add this up. 0, 0, carry 1. 5 plus 4, 5 plus 9 is 14. 4 carry 1, 2. Alright, so where do I put my decimal point? Since I have only one digit behind the decimal, I'm just going to have one digit behind the decimal here. So the cost is going to be $240. Okay? Bam, there you have it. So our answer is option D. That's the total price to cover this area, which is 26, which is 96 square foot. All right? 96 square feet. So there you have it. So thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel by clicking here, and to help support creation of videos just like this, you can post a comment down here, tell me what you think, or like the video if you liked it. More videos can be found on mathgotserved.com. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.